Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
So then, I lost 60% of my business in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, March 17th. Remember it well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
And so what happened after that? Today's guest is a fearless entrepreneur who built and sold one of the region's most successful and independent communications companies, Sophie Ghavidel. From hustling as a kid to landing a major client on day one of business, Sophie has always been driven by instinct, risk-taking, and an obsession with success. She turned a bold idea into a powerhouse PR agency, Toh PR, handling luxury brands, top restaurants, and global corporations. But success came at a cost. In this episode, Sophie reveals the hardest lessons in business, the sacrifices no one talks about, and why selling her company was just the beginning of her next move. Sophie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So what I thought I'd do today is just, as you can see, the title is Beyond the Business Card. We've got a formula here. We like to talk about people's origin story. We'd like to talk about early influences. What led you to Dubai?
Yep.
You've been here. I've been here 17 years, I think.
16.
16 years.
Just behind you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. What brought you to Dubai, of course, and then what's in store next? So we're going to talk through the story. Could you just start by telling us a bit about yourself? So a bit about your origin story.
So I am from the UK. I think the most interesting thing about my upbringing was probably that I'm 100% British. I mean, people say to me, like, you are the most English person I've ever met in Dubai. So, I mean, that's probably what you need to know. So I'm very much a kind of transplant from London, came over here 16 years ago and just really embraced that kind of, I think, the freedom and opportunity that comes in Dubai. Because, back home, it was like, well, this is what my life is going to look like at 21. By 30, I'm going to be married. By 40, I'm going to have like 10 kids. And then by 50, game over.
Yeah. I'm very British, but I actually thought I was sort of quarter Italian or something quite exotic.
Okay.
And we did one of those DNA tests, my sister and I, and it was 90% Yorkshire. It was there, and I think the other 10% was Norwegian or something. So I'm very much a Brit, like yourself. You've just jumped a big leap there. So you brought up very British. Brought up in whereabouts in the UK?
So London.
London. Okay.
From London, yeah.
Did you always have ambitions to travel internationally?
Yeah, I think I'm also kind of one of 4 sisters, which is fantastic. I love my sisters, but it's quite a crowded upbringing.
Yeah.
And so I was number 2, which is always, again, a bit of an awkward, you're not the top, you're not the one, you're in the middle.
Yeah.
And I just always had it in me. I was always from the age of like 6, 7, I was just buying and selling things.
Right.
Like I would just like set up a garden fete in our garden, and then my dad would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm having a garden fete.
Yeah.
My dad's like, no one is coming to your garden fete. And it was just always always in me. And I was always saying, I want to have my own company. I want to be, a leader. And I don't know why. And I think it was always my way, maybe in quite a busy, noisy, big family, of just carving out my own niche a little bit. And I think, again, then the opportunity to come to Dubai was like, great. Okay, like I said, back home, I'm one of, quite a big family. My mum remarried. We had more siblings coming in. So I was like, Dubai has always been my way of like having something for myself.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I read that you studied politics. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So big focus on education back home.
Yeah.
My dad he didn't push us to be specifically like into a career, but my dad was very like, we will educate you to the best of our kind of financial means. That was always the big thing about our family. My dad had 4 kids and put us all through private school, and we didn't really take holidays. We was like, you're going to school. That's where we're spending our money. So it was always very kind of pushing us into that. So I think politics, it was like, you have to go to Cambridge University, you have to go to Oxford or Cambridge. My sister was at Oxford. I'll go to Cambridge. And so it was, politics was kind of one of the only things you could study at Cambridge. It wasn't because I wanted to study politics. I didn't want to be a prime minister. I didn't want to. British politics is not my thing.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I read the news avidly, but I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be a politician, but it was very much like, well, if you're going to a quote unquote good university, you have to be studying economics, politics.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
That's quite interesting. So your dad sounds like you put everything into you and your sister's education.
Yeah.
Were you aware that like it was a pretty expensive school?
Oh yeah. And it wasn't a guilt thing, but I, at the age of 11, I remember being put into a room. Oh, it's a funny story. So my dad was like, he's like, well, if you could get a scholarship to these expensive schools, my dear daughters, it's going to help me, help me.
Yeah.
We might be able to go for a holiday. So I remember at the age of 11 being put in this room to do the exam for the secondary school they wanted me to go to. And my mum was so sweet. She was like feeding me fish for breakfast. I was like, Mum, why are you feeding me fish? She's like, well, the fish oil is good for your brain. It's going to make you clever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember like doing this exam and the girl next to me was like, really smells of fish in here. And I couldn't concentrate on my exam because I was like, oh, I smell of fish. I think it was a school dinner, like the smell of the school dinner, not me. But to this day, I was 11 years old. Like this is like 30 years ago.
Wow.
Still remember like
your trauma.
doing the exam. But no, he very, very kind of pushed. And like I said, and that was good, but it was always kind of like you need to have the good education. But it was just that idea of like, I want to do best for my daughters.
Yeah.
But no pressure in terms of what we did with that.
Yeah.
Complete blank canvas to do as much or little with our lives as we wanted to.
Yeah. I went to private school in the UK, and it was an interesting dynamic I had because my father paid all in advance and then went away. So my parents split up and my dad moved to America. And I didn't really hear from him for a long time. So my mum was very poor, but I went to a really nice private school.
Yeah, there's all sorts that can go on
very
with that.
Weird dynamic that was. And I think it made me, I actually know that my drive in business pretty much stems from that because I used to go to school every day and my mum would essentially be on benefits, but I'd see people with like Rolls Royces pulling up to the school and it gave me a real taste and a drive.
It's a very important point that is like just because we can go into a whole political debate about the UK and school fees and VAT, but we won't. Yeah. But it's an interesting point that because it's just because you've got a good education, it doesn't mean that you don't come out of that like striving or you're not uncomfortable you're not necessarily comfortable with all those kids that,
Yeah.
All the kids in my school used to have like the Ralph Lauren polo shirts for games.
Yeah.
It's like my mum, like, why don't I have a Ralph Lauren netball shirt? She's like, because you've got 3 sisters.
Yeah. You got the hand-me-down from one. Yeah.
I got like the grey, but that was it. But actually, funnily, my parents did divorce when I was 17 at school.
Yeah.
And that was really, I think, a bit of a shock to me. That was the first time in my life that like something had gone wrong. And that was very much the turning point and at the same time, I broke my collarbone.
Okay.
So I was having a bit of a rebel moment.
Yeah.
My parents were getting divorced. I went on a motorbike. Don't know why. Fell off, broke my collarbone.
Right.
And then at that point, I was netball. I was quite good at netball. I was always playing netball. I was a captain of the school.
Okay.
And for the first time, my parents were getting divorced, broke my collarbone, couldn't do sport. So then there was something going on at my school that was like the Young Enterprise scheme. And because I was bored on a Thursday afternoon, I was like, well, they were like, Sophie, you should probably go and do the Young Enterprise scheme because you can't play sport.
Yeah.
And so I remember like I set up a little business then at that point in my life selling scented candles.
Wow.
Because I wanted to be Jo Malone.
There you go.
Yeah, and that was it.
The early signs of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that was it. But it was like when something had to slightly go wrong, you had to have that kind of slight moment where it's like it's not all going to be like sunshine and roses. It's quite a tough time, quite a dark time as I remember it. But I kind of work was there, and then I won the scheme. I got my photo in the local newspaper being like young entrepreneur, and that was it.
All because you got injured.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's that moment of life where it's like actually sometimes when things go wrong, it forces you into a situation that can be quite positive.
Yeah, gosh, that's so true. And so many people I've spoken to where that's been the case, or they've had an injury which has slowed them down and made them have to look at something else. So that's really interesting. So you did politics, came out of university. Did you go? You didn't go straight to Dubai after that.
No, so I think after that kind of early taste of like setting up a company and it being quite fun. Unexpectedly fun. I was then like, I'm going to have my own company at the age of 27. I don't know why I said 27, but I said by the age of 27, I'm going to have my own company. So I went to university and then was always very, I always kind of had side interests throughout university. I was always kind of like, right, I'm studying politics slightly because I have to. I need to get the degree. I've signed up for 3 years of this thing. But all of my friends, we had great little businesses throughout the whole 3 years. It was fantastic. I was at Bristol. So we used to like run all the nightclubs. I used to go to like makeup brands and get them to kind of appear in the like student nights and kind of early kind of brand partnerships, sponsorships.
Yeah.
I used to hang out with like, it was back in the day of Bristol. So they had like, what they called, like the Prodigy were always there, Massive Attack were always there.
Great place for music.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So, you know, the club, you know, that scene at the time, Portishead is a place down the road. So yeah, it was a really interesting time and I loved it. So I came out of university being like, great, I've got a degree, not as good as I should have got, but because I just
got it.
I got it, ticked my box. And then I was like, right, I am, you know, a business person. I'm going to move to London and make my fortunes. And then I moved to London and I was like, oh my God, I need to pay rent. Oh, how am I going to do this? And if I didn't get a job and could pay my own rent, I'd have to go and live with my dad.
Yeah.
To me, which felt like a huge step forward after like running around Bristol for 3 years. So I was like, right, okay, I need a job. What am I good at? And I was like, well, I think I've kind of been doing PR for these past 3 years in Bristol, like PRing the kind of nightclubs, the student staff, like promotion, like all sorts. I did all sorts. And honestly, it was as simple as I think I'm doing PR. I think that's what I'm going to be good at. And then I got myself a job in London.
See, I've spoken to someone else that was worked in nightclubs and bar and PRs, did PR for nightclubs, and he told me one of the really interesting things about that was about people management. But the different characters that you would meet. He said that experience that he had gave him, he stuck with him all his life because of the different characters and the way he had to communicate to all the different types of people all the time. And he said it served him well throughout his career.
Very good. And, you know, don't forget, I come from a relatively sheltered, you know, my sob story was not really a sob story, but at 17, I broke my collarbone. You know, it was relatively kind of easy and cute upbringing. And then I was thrown into this kind of messy Bristolian underworld and loved it. And it was good for me. Yeah. You know, I was like, it was good to be exposed to all those different people from different walks of life. Yeah. Like, there was a Mr. X. I was like, why has he not got a name? And everyone was like, because he's the one that like clears the way for the nightclub to be opened. Jeez,
Mr. X.
We're not, you know, long way from my schooling days.
Actually, I had a brief spell living in Bristol, just off White Ladies Road. It was quite a lot of fun. But it was, it was. To be honest, it was a time in my life where I was very much interested in going out.
I just wanted
to. And I left after a while because that's all I really did. Okay, so you moved into the PR world.
Yeah, just by default, because I was like, I think I just really want to go and live with my friends. I need to be in London. I need to earn some money. So then I worked in PR for quite a short time, actually. And then the financial crisis hit. Yeah. And the financial crisis hit. And again, that was a bit of a wake up call. That's when I was 27 or 26, 27 when it hit. And then I realized that my kind of dream career in PR in London in an agency, I was doing quite well. I got promoted, you know, I was doing pretty well in hindsight in quite a short space of time. But it's that moment of understanding of like, this isn't going to give me what I want. You know, there must be more to this. Like, I don't think this London, you know, it seems very kind of bleak financial crisis in London. My boss is making redundancies. And so I had the opportunity to come to Dubai on a holiday for 3 months. But I, being me, I was like, how am I going to keep my boss paying me when I'm on holiday, quote unquote. So I went to her and said, listen, there's all these journalists in Dubai. I think it'd be nice if we built relationships with them. I'm going to spend 3 months building relationships and setting the groundwork for your Dubai office to my boss. And then I'm going to help you do all your new business proposals remotely because I can do them and send them to you and you can pitch. Yeah. She was like, sounds great. So I came here, met all the journalists, and then decided I wanted to stay.
Brilliant. Yeah. And did you initially launch a branch of the business you work for?
No, I didn't. She was quite upset. I remember it very clearly. I called her up after 3 months and was like, sorry, Kelly. I was like, Kelly, I'm not going to come back. You know, I'm staying in Dubai. And she didn't understand. She was like, oh, so you want me to kind of extend the agreement that we've got? And I was like, Kelly, it's not going to work. I'm going to be here. I need to resign. Screamed. She was like, how can you be so ungrateful? I thought you were going to open my office for me. And I was like, oh, sorry. Well,
you must have been a valued employee then. You're only going to do that.
I was good at winning business. Yeah. I was good, you know, it was really good, but I was just like, listen, I want to be in Dubai for 2 years. and I'd like to remain friends. So when I come back to London, maybe we can pick up again. I don't want to end badly, but I'm going to stay in Dubai. I just had this feeling about Dubai.
Well, the way you sold it to her gave me a clear insight that you were good at new business then. It's just the way you quickly packaged that.
This is a win-win.
That is a talent.
This is a win-win.
Yeah.
No, and I think I was like 26.
Yeah.
And then, so when I was 27, I did set up the PR agency.
So you moved here 3 months, came for 3 months, stayed, and then
for 2 years, always for 2 years.
It was going to be for 2 years, like everyone says,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
But rather than work for someone, you decided, with no Middle East experience, you decided to go and set up your own business.
No one. I lived over there on the Palm, on the worst building on the shoreline, the one on the left when you enter under a bridge. Yeah. I lived there. I was like, I'm on the Palm. I'm living my dream. Yeah. I used to look at the hotel here, which is the what's it called, Amouage Rotana.
The one and only is just there.
No, the one opposite it here, Media City.
Yes.
I used to look at that lit up at night, right, and be like, I've arrived.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
literally the other side of the car park.
And no disrespect, it's not a nice hotel.
No, it's not.
But I used to look at it every night from my shoreline apartment and be like, I've arrived. This is it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go here.
But what made you think, come on, right? Most people come here. I mean, I run a recruitment business here. Most people come here, they go, I really like it. And they go and look for a job. Yeah. And actually, before I moved to Dubai, because I got offered a job, right? Most people's path out here is getting a job.
I know.
What made you think that you could just, without knowing anyone, go for it straight away?
I very much like taking risks.
Okay.
I like taking risks. I still take risks in what I'm doing in real estate work. Yep. What I'm doing now is another risk. Yep. I've always been motivated by a kind of curiosity of what happens if I do this.
Yeah.
I'm always quite interested in if I put myself in this situation, I'm always got this curiosity of like, can I make it work? I can't explain it. It's just who I am.
Yeah. I mean, that's so how did it go? Come on.
So, all right. So back in London, I'm probably a bit of a kind of still in my party girl phase.
Yeah.
So I had a really good friend in London called Marlon. Still really good friends with her. She had a boyfriend. I won't name him. Right. But he's in Dubai now, doing very, very well. Long story short, I walked into a restaurant called Zuma in the DIFC.
Yeah.
Which is just early. This is 2009.
Just opened or something?
Yeah, just opened. Like DIFC was not what it is now. I walked into this restaurant. Someone told me that Zuma was going to be cool. Was going to be cool, wasn't cool. And I ran into my friend's ex-boyfriend. And I said, what are you doing in Dubai? Like, I last saw you in London with my friend.
Yeah.
He goes, I've now moved here. I run Zuma.
Right.
And I said, great. And he goes, what do you do? And I just looked at him and these words came out of my mouth. I said, I have a PR agency. And he goes, do you? I went, yeah. He goes, okay. He goes, well, I might need a PR agency. Let's come and have a chat with me, with your team, quote unquote.
Did he know? Did he know? Yeah, he knew.
He's like, okay, bless. All right, okay, we're friends. Yeah. So come and see me with your team chat about doing the PR for Zuma.
Yeah.
So I called up another friend called Polly, who I'm still good friends with, and I said, Polly, can you come to a meeting with me? So, why? I said, well, I'll buy you a drink. And we went, and I did know. To be fair, I did know how to do a pitch. Yeah. At that time. So I went, I sat down, I think it was still PowerPoint. I did a proposal for Zuma. I knew my way around that. And I went to pitch it to this guy. And he was like, that wasn't bad. And then we started doing PR for Zuma.
Wow.
And then I built my team.
And what did Polly think she was turning up to? Did Polly have a script?
Polly's birthday is tomorrow. We can ask her. She's just moved back to Dubai. She's in London. We can ask her. It was a different time in Dubai. Yeah. All I can say, it was a different time. It's financial crisis. We're all emerging out of it. We're younger. The city isn't, and we'll come on to it now. You know, I think the idea of a PR agency that did media relations and kind of raised the profile that way. There wasn't Instagram really. Yeah. It was very new. Twitter was a thing, but that was it. We still kind of, our smartphones were still quite different.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could do that.
Yeah. But one of the things I noticed because I set up the business in 2010 and we did bits and pieces of work for you in the early days, I remember. And you guys, you had a clear niche. And I think that was one of the, you were very smart, and it sounds you were in Zuma. I don't, you pitched for the business in Zuma, but you stayed in that luxury niche.
We had that account for 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and this is where I get serious.
Yeah.
Yes, it was all this kind of happy accident, but I kind of did know deep down what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be found in London.
Yeah.
So I did come here, and I was like, and I think there was also a lot of talk at that time of female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I'm going to be a female. That's connected with me.
Yeah.
And I love Dubai. I've always thought it was amazing. I always like to live within viewing distance of the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
Because it just signifies to me, what I love.
Yeah.
I find it quite motivating.
Absolutely. And I think if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit about you, you come to Dubai where you're caught up in anything is possible, vibe that this city has. And I'm just not surprised that you suddenly, if you've had that in you, you've obviously
I came to Dubai and it was like boom, catalyst.
Exactly.
And I was like, see you later, rainy London.
Yeah.
Because London was bleak.
Yeah.
And I've had so many opportunities where things have gone badly. Again, my life slightly fell apart at the age of 37. So 17, 27, 37.
Yeah.
I've always had these kind of 10-year crisis points in a way.
Yeah.
Or kind of inflection points, whatever you want to call them. And I've had many moments where it maybe would have been more sensible to go home to the UK, or safer to go home.
Yeah.
But I just really am slightly obsessed by this part of the world.
It's not how you're wired either. You're not the sort of person that takes the easy option.
No. And exactly, and coming onto the company, so I built the company relatively savvy, and so it was luck and hard work, as it maybe always is. Winning the Zuma, knowing my friend in Zuma was luck, but then making it work was hard work. And then Zuma became this was before we had every single restaurant under the sun.
Yeah.
That Zuma became the place. And so a lot of people were going, well, who's done the PR for Zuma? And I was having like 3 new business meetings a day.
Fabulous.
I'm building a team. Can you do what you did for Zuma for us?
Yeah.
And I just said yes.
But what people, you made it sound so easy, Sophie, but it's not. It's not.
No, it's not easy. I was working the entire time.
Yeah. And also, I say this to a lot of people as well, is that yes, it is a small town, and even then, back then, even smaller.
Yeah.
But you do a great job for someone finds about it. You do a bad job, everyone knows about it very quickly as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You are as good as your last project.
Yeah. And if you call yourself naively Toh PR, everyone knows exactly who to call.
You're talking to someone whose business is called MCG. Exactly. So don't worry, I know that. Yeah.
Where is Sophie Toh? Bring her to me.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
Bring Sophie to the meeting, otherwise you're fired.
Yeah.
Okay. So but it was just a fantastic time, and it was just, so we started with F&B. We had, all the brands were coming here between 2010 to 2016.
Yeah.
And then I think the market was like, oh, we've got too many restaurants, started groaning.
Yeah.
And but we managed at that point to start winning. Maybe 2015, the company was maturing out of F&B, and we started winning like corporate hotel brands, car brands, watch brands, tourism destinations, Airbnb, Deliveroo. We just kind of became consumer.
Yeah.
So that was
fun.
Ferrari. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love them.
Just a few amazing brands.
Yeah,
but look, I know building a business here is very hard. It's talent is quite hard to come by. It's very sort of
Oh, very hard. Yeah.
It's a relationship driven market. People pass through Dubai.
Can't trust people.
Yeah, you can't trust. So tell me, in those early days, because that's that must have been right when you were a new scrappy business. You had to grow. How did you go about that? How did you build the business?
Well, this is also kind of where I made the decision to do the merger.
Yeah. Because
in those early days, I was learning as I was going. I have quite good, I've been told, but I do think I work on instinct quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to do a job interview for someone, I will very much base it on, it sounds very flippant, but I will base it very much on my gut feeling and that first 2 minutes of interaction and like how I feel around that person. And I won't overthink that. And I've never been wrong on that. But I think, just learning along the way, learning, to trust yourself, learning to trust your decisions. When you're in late 20s, early 30s, you don't have a lot of confidence in your decisions. So, I made mistakes. And I've always tried and be, I would like to think I'm in contact with most people I've worked with, at least like 90% of people I've worked with, in friendly contact with. And where necessary, I have said, I didn't always get it right, did I? And we laugh and move on, and,
That's
okay.
good.
But it was a sheer hard work.
Yeah.
And, I think we were good at what we were doing at that point in time. The market's changed so much now. You can't just send out press releases and do events and raise profile that way. The market's fragmented. It's so quick. It's obviously digital, so at that time we were meeting the needs of what people wanted.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Was it quite lonely?
Yeah. I mean, so basically I lost my marriage.
Right.
My first marriage fell apart.
Really?
I wouldn't say just because I was a workaholic.
Yeah.
But certainly I was in that mindset of, I just want to be successful. I just want to see this is working, and I'm just going to see this to its logical conclusion. And then at the time, the other person in the relationship was like, well, hello, I don't want to be Mr. Toh.
Yeah.
That was a thing that was kind of, and yeah, so it was lonely.
Yeah.
It was very lonely after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I bet. I mean, it's your first baby, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's also like some of the pressures that people don't understand about running a business out here, and I can speak from experience and from talking to other people. Cash flow is so hard to manage in the early days as well, and it's just the whole getting things moving. It's a new level of stress, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember early on talking to someone who I respect hugely, and he's called Gaurav. He's very successful with his own agency, and he was like, Sophie, I have to muster X amount every month to cover my salaries.
Yeah.
And I remember just going out of that meeting being like, geez, how does that guy sleep?
Yeah.
And then there I was at the age of early 30s, exceeding that number and being like, I was living by, do I have enough cash in the bank to pay my stuff?
Yeah.
I'm always very proud on like the 27th of the month or whatever, when we would make those transfers. And I was like, great, we've done it for another month.
We did it.
It's that feeling. You never are floating around being like, look at me, check me out. And everyone was like, you're not a PR person because you're quite kind of discreet. You're not in your face, getting all the freebies off your clients and kind of, being quite kind of in your face and bubbly. And I'm like, no, because I've never felt that comfortable to be that person.
Yeah.
Plus I am quite, I wouldn't say shy, but I'm quite, British.
Yes. Gotcha. Yeah. So at what point did the business, you feel like, because there's that scrappy stage in the early stages of the business, isn't there? And then all of a sudden you kind of realize you've got a machine and it's
machine. Yeah, it's great.
You've got a machine, it's working. And then you look out in the office and you go, there's a lot of quite a few people here, actually.
And I used to walk through them and be like, hello, hello, God.
Yeah, and stuff gets done and people aren't coming to you so much. So how did that, tell me about that transition period, because that can be quite hard for founders to deal with. Some that I've spoken to were acutely aware that they were the bottlenecks in their own business and had a tough time stepping back, and others were very happy to let go and saw it happen. How was it for you?
Oh no, I'm hands-on. I'm hands-on.
Yeah.
Very hands-on. And that's the thing I struggled with. So I think very much, it was like this is kind of where I've kind of transitioned out of the company now, because so Toh was kind of doing super, super well, relatively in its industry, kind of 2016, 17, 18. And it was running quite nicely, but, and I had, audited accounts. The best piece of advice I ever got, by the way, was get audited accounts.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice.
I bet.
So I could go to an M&A guy and I was like, here's my company accounts, and they could value the company and they could do a transaction with either to sell the company or merge it. And I needed to make it, I just wanted the company to grow in a way. And I was like, I am the bottleneck. There's only one of me. I can't possibly open other offices or go to other markets if there's just me, because there's only so many hours in a day. I do enjoy that kind of creativity and strategy input into the accounts. And I think it's quite hard to find people sometimes who have that kind of, can add that extra 5% to a strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you have to be super dedicated to all your accounts to be able to put that in. And that's what I was kind of doing and maintaining the relationships. So I was able at that stage to kind of recognize that and say, well, I've got this financial history. And I was able to go to a kind of credible financial guy and say, what are my options here? I want to stop being just me on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
What can I do? And one of the options presented that seemed to make sense at the time was to merge the Toh into a global group.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. And then over the course of 3 years, the Toh was integrated quite slowly, delayed by COVID and other things that came up, but as to the lifestyle team of the PRCO group.
Yeah.
So it merged into the PRCO group.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And it was a decision. I think always I always look back and be like, well, what would have happened if I hadn't done that?
Yeah.
I could have grown the company a different way. I could have done it, but that's the decision that I did, and it worked really well.
Do you regret that decision?
No, because I'm always curious about what I can do next.
Gotcha.
Always. That's just what excites me and drives me.
Yeah.
Like the most exciting documentary I've ever watched in the past year was Sylvester Stallone. Who I don't. Have you seen it? I don't connect with Sylvester Stallone. I don't know why I was watching this, but Sylvester Stallone at the age of 70 odd was basically very comfortable, all the money in the world, living in Los Angeles. Yeah. And then I think overnight he's like, I'm just going to sell this house, sell my possessions, and move to New York. And to me, I was like, yes, that is what living is about. It's about what is the other side? What can you do? Life is chapters.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited now. I've had an amazing year where I've got to see my daughter grow up. I've got to renovate houses. I wrote a book. I explored this wellness investment opportunity, done all this amazing stuff. And it's always, for me, it's like life is about moving forward and growing.
You just said a few things there which are quite big. You wrote a book.
Yeah, I wrote a book. Yeah.
I mean, my wife wrote it, but that's a big task.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
Yeah. So what made you write? What did you write a book about?
So I was asked, just to be clear, it's a charitable book.
Yeah.
So there's a series of books written and all the proceeds go to a children's hospice in Asia. But I mean, it's a credible, published on Amazon. You can order it and everything. And I actually wrote a book about the kind of sub-journey of the kind of career trajectory I was on, because the sub-story there was, at the end of it, I really wanted to become a mother. So it was all about, it's called Career Rich, Child Poor. And it was all about the sacrifice. So it's lonely. So I had a marriage fall apart, but also beyond that as well, I was able, I did meet my fantastic now husband, but underneath all of that kind of decade was that, well, you're working so hard, your body's completely screwed, for want of a better word. How the hell can you bring a child into this world? So I always had that going on in the background as well. And that was a sacrifice that I made.
Right.
Because actually when I did put the company into a global structure, and I did manage to take 2 weeks holiday, something as simple as 2 weeks holiday, and I did kind of relax, I was able to have my daughter.
Wow.
So the book was kind of just reflecting on what I kind of sacrificed along the way.
Do you mean to say in the time that you built the business, you didn't really take much of a holiday at all?
Do you take holidays?
Every now and then, yeah. I mean, I do now. I mean,
but in the beginning, it's
working
hard.
holiday. Ask Helen, my wife, if she said, do I take holidays? I'm kind of always working in different locations.
Yeah, that's
there
what
you go.
Yeah, you're answering emails by the call, right?
Yeah.
No, I meant like a kind of where you can actually
total switch off.
No, that's not true, because on that holiday I was doing calls at 5 a.m.
Of course.
Mentally, I think it may be just the mental.
Yeah.
We're quite sensitive beings, aren't we? So I think it was just that kind of mental ability to switch off to a better degree. You're not just living on your nerves the whole time.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Okay. Yeah.
Can I just go back and ask you about the M&A activity that you did? So obviously you were, and I know this space pretty well. So you guys were a really well-respected, well-known independent. And this isn't a market where there's a lot of independents that have thrived. I've seen so many come and go.
Yeah.
You must have had a few approaches as well.
I did, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think, I can't remember the order, but let's say I had a fairly major relationship exit, and so I was then spent the next year or so just, my way of kind of making sense of it all was just to double down on work. And I'm not saying that's healthy, that's just what I did. Yeah. And then the company really was doing really quite well.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that in a kind of bragging way. I'm just saying relatively to where it was before. Yeah. I'm not trying to benchmark it or anything. So I think along that way, I was like, oh my God, all I'm doing is work. And I'm sure any women listening to this, you know, you're getting to your late 30s and you're like, everyone is like, are you ever going to find another relationship? Are you ever going to have kids? I already knew that having children was difficult for me. So I was just like, I was a bit like, screw it. I'm just going to be a single career person for the rest of my life. And then really just threw myself into work because I was scared of like not being successful if I was kind of single and lonely at the weekends, right? So I was just like going for it. And I think around that time, I think I had one approach this is what happened. I had one approach organically, one or two that didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
And that really kind of piqued my interest because I was born in the 80s and, you know, like it was all about transaction and selling and deals, right? Wall Street. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do a deal. So I think I had some people who kind of got my attention and then pulled out. And that's that classic move of like, oh, now I really, you know. Yeah. So I think then I went to see my friend George in the DIFC. And I said, listen, these are my accounts. And he was, you know, he took it seriously. He was like, no, you have a business here. I'll market it. I'll kind of, you know, do a prospectus and let's see what we can do. And I was like, great, let's do it. Okay. It was just the next thing I wanted to kind of explore. Yeah.
And what made you choose the company that you ended up selling to?
Chemistry, just alignment with, it would just, you know, like I had seen some other... Well, I knew I didn't want to actually kind of sell the company because I knew deep down that the moment you announce a sale of a company, your staff is just like freaked out, your clients are freaked out. And I know the way, you know, you might get a nice check up front, but then you're expected to hit the kind of targets as you go through those 3 years. Yeah. And they can be quite aggressive. And essentially you're just being paid up front from your own future earnings. Yes. And it's just a nice ego thing. And you're like, oh, and then, you know, you're not actually going to get the subsequent payments. So I was like, really, really aware of that. And I'm like, I don't want that sort of situation whatsoever. So it was much more of a kind of soft integration. And it was deliberately very soft. I think maybe one learning was that it was so soft, it was a bit confusing to the market about what was going on. But again, you learn as you go. But it was very much just that sense of this is the next step that I want to do. This is my next challenge. Yeah. And also I wanted to protect the team. I didn't want the team to kind of look at me and be like, what did you do? You know, why did you break it? And ironically, we did this and we took such care over the team and the communication. And this was like November, December 2019. And so then we had January, February 2020, and it was all kind of really, you know, internally at least, you know, that was kind of the messaging was really good. And, you know, the clients were all happy and it just seemed like a really positive move that we are now plugged into this global network, even though there were moves beyond that to integrate further. But the step one was done really nicely. And then we had COVID. Right. So then, you know, I lost 60% of my business in one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did
March 17th. Remember it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
And so what happened after that?
So we rebuilt.
And did it rebound quite quickly? Because obviously Dubai handled COVID.
Relatively quickly. But then I was in yes, it did, to answer your question. Yes. But then I was in this kind of more of a global structure run by, you know, really quite seasoned global network. And it was a very careful rebuild. So it's much more, to answer your point earlier, you know, like we were less, we're just going to do these projects because they seem, you know, they're going to keep us relevant. It was much more about like building those foundations. What are the clients who are on retainer? Let's put in kind of minimum fees. Let's rebuild in a kind of sustainable way. Okay. Which was a good lesson.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so how long did you remain part of that business for?
So the idea was 3 years.
Yeah.
COVID delayed a little bit, and then so it ended up being 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you for someone that you just described your personality and the type of person you are, setting up, you've been an entrepreneur for a while, and you go and join a big corporate with structures. Can I ask you how you handled that and how you managed to cope in that environment?
We have to tell your spoiled child to zip it. Your inner child. Zip it. Yeah. You are not booking your flights anymore. Yeah. You know, there is a company policy about where you'll be sitting. Yeah. You know, so at the beginning, sometimes it does jar, but you know, you've made that decision. It's your life. You own it. You own that decision. You know, you made a choice to move into something that is deliberately kind of structured, and there are benefits of that, which is predictability and stability, and that's everything that you want. So if you made the choice to go into that, you do have to just kind of have a word with yourself at times, being like, this isn't your show anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a decision that you make. But you do have to, I think about that quite carefully and think about really not just the kind of like, okay, fine, I'm going to work for corporate. Yeah. It might be a bit more kind of, but really like break it down. What does that mean? Like I'm the kind of person that loves to go into the office early and late. I'm quite diligent in the way that I work, but just simple things like, do you assume that working from home that morning just because your kid goes to nursery and it's convenient to you?
Yeah.
Are you going to be upset if someone questions that?
Yeah.
If you choose to go away for a holiday in September because it's cheaper and someone says, well, actually that is our company away day and actually we prefer people taking holidays in July and August like we always do. Is that going to jar with you? Like, it's those examples of things.
There's so many horror stories that go wrong on this. I've got one for you. So my family's business was the storage business, right? It's my stepfather's business, and he sold his business to a well-known storage company in the UK. I'll remain nameless. I don't want any. Yeah. Anyway, it was the acquisition took place. It was a three-stage payment with one of the directors staying on as the MD.
Yeah,
he got let go for gross misconduct. Basically, didn't do what you mentioned there. He just carried on treating the business as if it was his own.
Yeah,
and that was that. And the deal fell. The last payment didn't happen. And
that's the danger as well. This M&A stuff. It sounds so great, and honestly, it is a bit of an ego thing. Sitting in a nice office and being like, my company's worth X.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. You've got stars in your eyes. But that's that's something I wanted to go through because again, you learn from that. But it is quite it's quite an appealing thing to be told that your company is worth this. Your little thing you started from nothing is worth this.
And that Zuma story to that.
Yeah, it's like quite a distraction. But I think people should really, you really got to sense check that and be like, what am I being paid up front? Where is that money coming from? Nothing is free.
Yeah.
What am I giving up to earn that next payment? When am I getting it? Do I have to hit targets I haven't hit before? Am I going to be winning business? This was something for me as well. I was very used to winning business quite organically. And, being able to kind of make decisions on pricing with, using my own judgment.
Yeah.
And that was a challenge for me because I was like, you've kind of come to me wanting, saying, okay, Sophie, this is your track record. We want you in our group. And then for me, my thing was like, I know how to price. And I know that if I'm offering a discount or if I'm pricing at that, it's making sense to me. So my hardest part was actually having that conversation with the finance director who was like, they need to be paying X and their contract needs to be Y length. Otherwise it doesn't make sense for group metrics. And I was like, and so you need to really think through like, am I going to be able to perform as well as I can if I'm slightly, not in a box, but if I'm slightly I'm one of many.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to think about.
Oh, gosh, so much.
You can come and talk to me. It's fine.
Yeah. So I'm interested from an emotional perspective. You touched on there's a couple of big things that have happened in your life while you've had the business, but then you've sold it. Was it like the closing of that? You're ready to close that chapter and that part of your life and move on to the next part?
Yeah. I think that's good in life. This was a company that I started when I was in a very, very different time chapter in my life. So on one hand, it was like something that I saw it coming full circle. There is something about becoming a mother that changes you on a cellular level. You can't fight it. It's a fantastic thing. I'm interested now to create something that is based on who I am today, not the kind of very naive risk taker that I was back in my 20s. I'm fundamentally the same person. I've got the still essence, the still energy, but I am a different person. And I'm interested to know what I can build today and how far I can take it because I've learned a thing or two along the way. So
did you have in your mind when you completed that sale process then, and obviously you become a mother and a new relationship, did you have an idea what you wanted to do next, or it was?
No, I never have an idea. I wanted just to throw all the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So which is what I've done over the past year,
Yeah.
So I've through real estate, I'm a trained interior designer. I trained at uni. I love interior design. So I've done a bit of styling with my husband, done some marketing for his developments. We've won an award. We're going to London next week to pick up our award. It's fantastic. So that was good. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I had the book. I always had a kind of itch I wanted to scratch of writing.
Yeah.
Because in press releases, writing, it's always like the client's like,
yeah,
it's too flowery. And you're like, okay. So I just wanted to kind of, that creative itch of actually kind of just, can I write? I don't think I'm the best writer, but I had a go. And then, there's always that thing in you of like, oh, maybe I just want to have a wellness brand. Maybe I just want to have a kind of digital platform and sell things online. So I kind of explored that a bit. So I had all of these different things going on, but I've just come to the conclusion that I'm better at comms.
Oh, so it's comms is where you're going to go next, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to, so basically I'm going to re-enter the market. My plan, after I had a year's non-compete, re-enter the market, but offer a fully integrated service that I think reflects where we are in 2025, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Okay. In the same way that when I started the company, I looked around Dubai and was like, what do we need here? This is what we need. We need people who can actually kind of work for an F&B market that's booming. Next iteration, I think at the market that's really interesting at the moment is real estate market.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. Done a lot of research into, the developers. I think there's so much work to be done with real estate marketing, for example. And again, it's similar to restaurants in that there's a very tangible success metric. Like, is my restaurant full? Have I sold my development?
Yeah.
So just really looking at what the city needs. And I've had the luxury of a year. I've just sat for a year looking and thinking.
It's strategic as well. I mean, you've obviously, when did you do the interior design course?
At uni, when I was doing my many things other than studying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got insight into that industry then. Your husband's in that world as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So my husband is a developer, does beautiful work, and I helped him out in the past year. But it got me, into that world, meeting the brokers. Some of these agents are just phenomenal. And there's so many. I mean, if you drive up the Sheikh Zayed Road now, for example, I think there's I counted 17 development billboards.
Yeah.
And I think in the same way that, there are certain industries that they can have a slight shift in the way that they're marketed. I personally think that the real estate industry I think the market's shifted. It's becoming a global hub. I think the local marketing that is done, I think that can be a focus area.
To me, this feels, so I landed here in September 2008, and I think the market crashed on its arse, like
November, the day after,
or some October, November.
Yeah.
I have, when I see those billboards,
do you get the same fear?
Yes, I do actually. I do, because they look the same. The wording's the same. I remember.
It's like elevate your lifestyle.
It's completely. I think there was a time where you got a Rolls Royce if you put a deposit down. I remember that. There were all these sorts of these weird billboards I used to see. I remember driving to Abu Dhabi, and where the Palm Jebel Ali is now, they had the side that there was a big billboard there, and it was like wafting in the wind for years as well. They didn't take it down. It was saying it's twice the size of Hong Kong or something like that. They were building there, and I look at that and I think it's not evolved one bit.
But we have. I respectfully disagree with you there.
Because I don't know it very well. Because I look at that and I go, oh.
But what you've got now, I think what we didn't have in 2018, we didn't have, the Palm was new, right? The Palm didn't have it was sand.
Yeah.
So if I said, okay, my villa's worth 3.2 million dirhams, should have bought one when it was.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Players still got those.
It's my big regret. But say, you say, okay, my villa's worth 3.2 million. You'd be like, why? What land, what underlying asset am I actually buying? Now there is a really strong, and actually the government has done a great work here in actually kind of making sure that the land department is actually tracking sales, and there is actually a kind of demonstrable value on the land that you're buying.
Yeah.
So I think it's always about you're buying the land, right? You're not buying the fancy penthouse that we can see here in One Palm or the Pearl or whatever is coming over here. I think that's what shifted in Dubai. It's more, we've got 10 years of maturity. I think per square foot, we are still underpriced to London, Singapore, New York, etc. Of course we are with Dubai, but I do think there's kind of room for that to kind of level out.
Yeah.
So I might be wrong. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I think at the moment but listen, that's just one area that I think is really exciting, and that's why I want to get back into more of an integrated kind of marketing agency route, because I think industries like that can help I don't think it's just media relations anymore.
Yeah.
That's going to work. I think it's got to be that whole kind of like branding, marketing, digital marketing piece as well.
Well, the time since you've arrived and I've arrived here to where they're completely different places.
Yeah.
But we have seen volatility in the market. And that's something, as a recruitment business, that's something we had a terrible year, 2015, 2016.
Yeah, it was a bit shaky around then.
It was terrible.
It was shaky,
and I didn't realize how many of my customers were linked to the price of the oil. That was the problem.
Yes.
It collapsed, right? So, and there is, and also the housing market, I think, peaked at 2014, didn't it?
It was 14,
and then dropped down again. So there has been this volatility, but you don't see it so much anymore, do you?
I think Dubai's slightly proved, and listen, I've always said from the beginning, I'm a fan of Dubai. Yeah. That's why I'm here. That's why I haven't gone home. So maybe I have, I'm a bit biased. But I think Dubai's proven itself, particularly in the pandemic, the way that it responded. It became a kind of, I think 1 millionaire every 45 minutes is arriving here, or is leaving the UK, and 80% of those people are coming to Dubai.
Yeah.
And I'm not commenting on what they're doing back home, but like Dubai is doing something right. Yeah. And so I think Dubai has shifted a lot. Here's a story. In 2008, my dad, who is a very respected lawyer, his second daughter is going to Dubai to run a PR agency. Okay. He takes that daughter aside and he's like, Sophie, are you in financial or legal trouble? No judgment. But if you are, I'm a lawyer. I can help you out. I can pay back any loan you need. Just don't go to Dubai. That's what my dad said to me. Right. And now that was because the only criminals, in the financial crisis were coming to Dubai. People who were leaving their cars at the airport. Yeah. So to have his second daughter kind of trot off to Dubai to do what was shocking to him. And then we came full circle. So we had dinner the other night on West Beach. Yeah. And we walked along the beach, this strip here, right? And we saw One Palm and we saw the new hotels and that. And he was like, you did the right thing, didn't you? Yeah. And that's from a very conservative construction lawyer. Yeah. That's my dad. Yeah. He was like, I get it now. Yeah. I didn't, but I get it.
Yeah, many. I think that's quite a common story. I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, by the way. They talk about the risks they want to take. Everyone thinks it's a crazy idea until they make a success of it, and they go, "Well, you know what? I thought that was a great idea all along."
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't have much to lose. I mean, always now I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah, I'll go home. Okay.
Yeah. But you've got quite a different life out. Your home life sounds quite different to when you set up the business. It was, you came out.
Well, I have one. Yeah.
And how do you think that's, because I think this is really, I've got a very good support network. My wife's an entrepreneur and sold a business. We've 3 kids. And I've seen some other people, really struggle, very lonely, not even manage to hold down relationships, etc. Yeah. Sounds like you've got a great sort of support network at home now. Yeah. Do you think that's the type of business that you're going to run now being a mum and married? Do you think it's going to be very different to how you did it the first time around?
Well, I think I've finally learning a tiny bit of boundary setting. Before I was like, now, and it's not necessarily me. It's because if you've got kids, you have to, it's them. Yeah. It's much more of a non-negotiable. It's like, well, I have to look after them. Yeah. So, absolutely. I still think I'm always going to be the kind of person that pushes limits just because that's kind of, I like to, so in the first year, I was a little bit over ambitious. I was like, me and my daughter are going to fly back to the UK. I'm going to oversee the renovation of my house in Devon on my own. And I've also got to deliver a book. True story. Yeah. Oh, my mum's turning 70 and I have to go and attend her birthday in the north of England. So I'm still that person. Yeah. But I will never compromise anything for my daughter. Yeah. Within that, she's always looked after perfectly. I'm not this irresponsible person, but I'm still that person who likes to do as much as they can. Yeah. So I still got that energy, but it's probably a good thing to have a little bit of anchor to that energy.
How else would you do it differently? What are some of the big, because this is like the chapter 2, should we say, in setting up a business. What did you learn from chapter 1 that you would do? If someone said to you, what would you do completely differently this time? What would that be?
I would bet on myself a bit more.
Really?
I would trust my judgment a bit more, definitely. And if it doesn't feel right, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
So again, that's kind of boundaries and knowing yourself and knowing, I think sometimes a business can stretch itself in many different ways and it's like becomes inauthentic just because they think they should. I'll never forget working, for example, with Nusret.
Yeah.
I think most people know Nusret, who's the kind of butcher.
Salt Bay.
Salt Bay, exactly. So hopefully most people know who he is. But I never forget working with him. And everyone just thought he was crazy. And he was like, I just do meat. I love meat. And everyone would come to him and go, maybe some sashimi? We like sashimi here. Maybe some truffle fries or, maybe burrata. We all eat burrata here. Maybe out of chocolate, chocolate fondant. So it's like, no, I do meat. And it's just such a good reminder. And then his restaurant just went off, and it's such a good reminder that, you do what you do. And you don't try and copy other people. And people can say, oh, I think you should do this. I think you should do this. And it's like, no, always just follow your guts. Do what comes naturally. Do what you enjoy is really important. If you don't enjoy it, why do it? I think that as you get older, you're like, no, life is too short. Literally, life is too short.
Yes.
I cannot, and you see other, people having health issues or, someone... a very close friend of mine, got, you lose people.
Yes.
And it's like, life is too short just to kind of pretend or keep a client happy just because you want to keep the client happy. So I think, as the older you get, the more definitive you can be about who you are and why you do it.
So balance is something that you've certainly...
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe in balance, work-life balance, because I do think that actually for me, when it's right, it all kind of can commingle. So, I think it's nice if you can just make sure in your day you have those different parts for everything. But sometimes you're going to be work focused, sometimes you're going to be more family focused, but you've got to be comfortable with all of it. Yeah. So,
but that's such a common trait with as many successful entrepreneurs that I met is that learning mindset. It's not arrogance. It's the people that don't succeed, the arrogant ones, the ones that actually are open to learning, open to listening, ask lots of questions.
I messed up. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not shy of saying I got it wrong. Like I'm really bad to fight with.
Yeah.
Because I won't fight. I'll be like, you're right. I'm sorry. And then the fight's over, and you're like, the other person's like, no, I want to. And I'm like, no, but I hear you, and you're right. And I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with saying.
That disarms everyone when you say that as well, don't you?
I don't have that. Oh, I need 2 days to calm down and then apologize. I'm like, sorry about that.
You're a pretty resilient character as well, aren't you?
Yes.
Where does that come from?
I don't know.
No, influencing from parents, group, how you grew up. Maybe it goes back to that collarbone. How you just got on and threw yourself into something else.
I have a book by my bed called Resilience. And I do think that the thing... So when I was setting up my company, when I was moving from London to Dubai, I was doing, maybe I just one Zuma here. I remember just going back to seeing my sister. We were sitting in Hyde Park and she was like, what are you doing in Dubai? I'm like, I've got this account called Zuma. She's like, what the hell's Zuma? My older sister cares nothing about like...
They had one in London, didn't they?
She doesn't care about this. She's very clever, doesn't care about such things. She's like, I don't care. What are you doing? And I'm like, Harriet, watch me. I'm just going to work harder and longer than anyone else and I'm going to be successful. Watch me. And she goes, all right, do you not want to be the best? I'm like, no, you get to be the best when you work harder and longer than anyone else. Watch me. Brilliant. So I said, yeah. So that's my thing.
Yeah. You just outwork everyone else.
Yeah.
And I guess you're going to do that in a different way now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's balance, right? I mean, I think I'm always like to get up early in the morning. My wonderful daughter now claims that time.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I used to think, if I get up, I can like outbeat the day.
Yeah.
And I'll always spend between like 6 and 8 with my daughter, no one else, one-on-one. And that works for me at this point in time.
Yeah.
And then there's the evenings.
Yeah.
I think when you kind of have a little bit stretch of that, you're not going to get as much sleep, deal with it.
Yeah.
But then, you do get those evenings when your kids are asleep to catch up with your husband, catch up with work. There's quite a lot of time in the day.
Yeah.
If you really want to use it effectively.
I'm a morning person, so I get up.
Too,
I get up like I've got actually my son's taken away that window. He seems to get up at like 5:30 moment, which is really
it's like
quite
that's my
annoying.
window. My brain is working now,
and he wants to watch YouTube. Even more annoying.
But it's good for me because it's good for me not to rush
Yeah.
I'm a rusher. I always rush.
I listened to an interview you did 8 years ago. You might not even remember this. Someone asked you, what do you enjoy about living in the city? And your answer was your Friday morning routine, where you drive to exercise and then watch the city and you had time to yourself.
Yeah,
so you've kind of repackaged that, right?
No, now I go to the beach with my daughter.
Yeah.
And we say our morning, she can't talk.
You're talking to her,
I'm
though.
talking
No,
to her.
yeah.
Now I do the same thing with her. So we go to the beach, and where we live, it's called Sunset Beach. And you can see the Royal Atlantis residence all the way on the Palm, all through to the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
So we always watch the sun come up. It's very inspiring.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when the weather's like this right now.
It's beautiful. In the winter, you've got this pink sky.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, we shall end on that note.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much for the conversation.
No, my pleasure.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, Sophie.
No, I loved it. Thank you.
And please do subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.